then I started having memories of childhood sexual abuse. And that was super intense. Like, that was, whoa, I did not know. But as soon as I started feeling those feelings, that feeling of something being wrong, the first memory I had, it was like, oh, that is what was wrong with me. I couldn't get to it any other way.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. First and most important question is, how are you doing? Like, actually, for real, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm actually doing quite well, considering the whole circumstances of my life at the moment. I'm going through rather a big transition period where both in the material world as well as in my psychological world, I would say, I'm letting go of one way of being and transitioning into a newer way of being, and trying to leave old patterns behind that have got me to the point where I am, but they've been causing me harm, I would say. So I'm going through this transition period, and it's slowed me right down because there's been a number of things that have happened over the last 3 years that have had a big impact in my life. They've been super challenging. Like, I'm going through one of the most challenging periods of my life, I would say. And yeah, so I'm happy with how I'm going through that, because it's super interesting, and I'm starting to feel a level of health coming back or returning that I haven't had for a long time. I feel like I'm coming from being the Walking Dead to coming back to life again, really. So even though this meditation that I practice and have been practicing, and why you got me on the podcast, I've been practicing for so long, life sometimes is just super hard, So it's really nice to be able to take the time to really catch up with yourself, because that's how I was feeling. I just wasn't able to keep up with the amount and volume of information and workload, and running a big team, and then having personal stresses on the side. It's just been a really super intense period. So yeah, feeling like I'm catching up and actually keeping up, and not so much coming in, more not coming in from the outside, and being able to digest and understand what has gone on in the last 3 years, and really resolve that fully, and rather than just being super stressed out and keeping moving, resolving the stress and slowing down and giving myself the time and the space to digest everything thoroughly and resolve all the stress built up over the last 3 years. So I'm very very happy about that, actually, because it's a very nice feeling to just catch up with yourself.
Yeah, it seems like you're proud of yourself for how you're handling these moments. And well, at least that's how it feels for me.
Yeah, well, I am, because if I went into the details of what I've just come through, I would, I think you might agree. It's been a super intense time. Like, some of the biggest things have happened in my life that it just have been totally unexpected, and the way I've dealt with them, with the reduction of reaction that I probably would normally have had in the past, and just dealing with it on that level, that basic feeling level of not reacting, but still resolving and fully understanding and staying in touch with what you're going through in those, I guess they're kind of like traumatic events that you go through in life. Still being able to stay super sensitized and super responsive, and and not losing it, you know. that's to me, that's kind of the ultimate success. Yeah.
Yeah. If you hadn't been, meditating at this point in your life for almost 30 years, do you think you would have handled this situation a bit differently? Or how do you think you would have
Oh,
responded without those tools or all of that practice?
yeah, that's a very good question. I doubt I would have handled it as well as I have. I'm sure I would have lost it. I would have, mentally just, be screaming on the side of the street, or uh, crying and feeling sorry for myself, and, feeling like the victim, and being angry, oh my god, and frustrated over the amount of frustration and some of the biggest challenging tasks I've had to perform in my work life just these last 4 months, actually. I've been running quite a big business, but these last 4 months, the challenges I've had to face dealing with a a very large company that has kind of no cohesion and no communication between teams, and trying to navigate 4 or 5 different teams and try to get them to agree on something and fix something, that has just been the biggest challenge I've ever faced in business. And it still may not even be successful, all the work that I've done. It still may end in nothing, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, okay, well, this I might be wasting my time here, but I'm okay with that. In the past, I would be pulling my hair out and angry and just feeling really frustrated and blaming people, or yeah. So such a plethora of things that you can react to, and get yourself in such a state over, that I've managed to, yeah, just move through it with, I wouldn't say ease, but I've moved through it in a lot smoother way than I ever have before. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been meditating for about 6 years. And I think the number one thing that I've learned, or that it's helped me with, is the ability to let go of things that I cannot control. Because I've been an athlete my whole life, and that's like the whole like point of being a great athlete, is you only focus on what's in your control. And then I get to my life and I sort of lose that athlete sort of mindset, because I'm not on the field of play, or I'm not doing these sorts of things that make me an athlete. And then when I started meditating 6 years ago, you learn that, like, when things happen, it sort of just is what it is. And the only thing I can do is what I can do. And that's been especially helpful for me in challenging moments to, okay, what's actually in my control here? Okay, that's the action step I can take. And then I can move forward with that. And from what I hear you saying, that's sort of what you're trying to do. Like, there's a lot of stuff that probably happened outside of your control, and you're trying to just focus on how you react, or let's say respond to the situation, and then try to move forward with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I've also taken the approach too that life happens to you, like, we're part of this world, but we're fully connected into this world. And we think we're in control of it, and we think we have choices, and we think we're able to uh, make things go the way that we want them to go. But in fact, we don't really have a lot of control over most things. Like, some of the most productive times in my life have been when I've been doing the least things in my life. Things happen in life, they just happen, and I don't think there's any coincidence, or there's no reason, or there's no, uh, what's the word, more, there's no reason that you deserve something more or less than another person. A lot of it has to do with timing, and where you are in yourself at the time, and how you respond to situations. But life is still bigger than that. There's it's a really big thing to understand. And if you can understand that, then you can relax a lot more into life and let life just flow. And it throws things at you that you need at exactly the right time. Like, I don't know how many times you've looked back on your life and you thought that something awful has been happening in your life. And then 2 years later, you look back and you're like, wow, that was a pivoting point. If that hadn't have happened to me, then I would have gone on a different trajectory and my life would have been totally different. So things that often look like they're bad often are the thing that you need. And for me, as I started out talking, I've had some of the most challenging times the last 3 years, but the last one in particular, the last event in particular, has I mean, it was bad, but at the same time, I've got this full sense of relief that it's actually happened, because I can see that it's the only thing that would have stopped me in my tracks with this behavior that was pushing me to go down this particular direction in my life. So if that event hadn't happened, then I would still be struggling with trying to stop that drive in me, trying to stop that aggression or aggressive nature that towards myself, to push, don't stop, don't give up, don't, just keep going, which in some areas or in some situations that's a good attribute. But if you're doing that long term and constantly pushing yourself and you're telling yourself that you're not good enough on some level, because otherwise you wouldn't need to be pushing yourself that hard. So for that behavior to be shown up through an event that happened in my life that was totally out of my control, that's what I mean by life is bigger than, it's kind of bigger than us, because we're just one part of an intricate machine, if you like, or an intricate ecosystem. And I think if we can take what life throws at us and understand the meaning or the life lesson behind it, then it makes life so interesting. It makes life more interesting than just reacting to it. Like I said, and by reacting to it, I mean blaming things on people or wanting things to be a different way or hoping that something will come along and relieve me, or something will come along and like if a person's wanting somebody to come and save them or help them, or not that that we don't need those things, but if you're living your life waiting for something to happen or waiting for somebody to save you, then you're not really involved in your life. You're not really doing it for yourself. You're always just waiting for somebody to give you something or offer something to you. You're waiting in hope almost for something to change rather than making that change yourself. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it sort of highlights a couple dichotomies that exist in life. Like each person matters so much, but in the general scheme of things, we don't matter at all. And that's like while you're here, the stuff you do matters, but like 100 years from now, no one's gonna fucking remember, right? So it's so interesting. In the same regard of like, no one's coming to save you. You have to do it. You have to do it yourself. But in the same token, having people around you that love you and encourage you is also really important. And so these things are so interesting to me. And when people can sort of find that middle ground of like, yeah, I have agency and I can do this, but like I'm also going to ask for help sometimes, or I'm going to go to my support system, or having a partner next to me is also really great. But it's also me who has to actually do the work. And I think those are interesting, especially just looking at, life and all of that. And if you can find that middle ground of that stuff, you truly are sort of, unbeatable in that sort of way, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
And yeah. And another thing that made me think of was, when you said that was, it's good to take life as granted, not for granted. Um, and I don't know who said that. It wasn't me who came up with that, so don't quote me on it. But I found that really powerful. Like things are happening for us, not against us. You know, I get to do this thing. This thing is happening for me. Is a powerful mind frame to have, especially when challenges happen. But not all challenges. Some challenges are just so horrible that you're just trying to get through them. And once you get through them, then boom, move forward. But about 95% of life, I think you can learn a lesson from. Just like the lessons you can learn, some things are just okay, but some things are above that threshold of like, wow, this is just really fucking terrible, and we're gonna get through it. I don't need to learn any lessons from it. But majority of life, I think it's like, yeah, we can learn those lessons so we don't repeat them over again, and we can continue to improve as human beings. And I think that's quite powerful as well.
Yeah, definitely. And just, I mean, further to that, I think in life also things happen to us for a reason, uh, not to be, not for a reason like a bad reason or something, because you need to learn the lesson. But in some ways, it kind of is like that, because as you grow up and you've got this effect of other people inside of you, if you're not able to let them go, which is what you touched on previously, if you're not able to let the effects of life, your past life, go, then to me anyway, it seems that if you're not able to let things go, then life is going to throw things at you to trigger those events or trigger the effects of those events. So if it's held in your body, if the tension is held in your body after, maybe you grew up as a kid and you were badly beaten or something, and that has an effect that stays in your body through a tension that is held from that event. And until that you can understand or learn how to get past that tension, I call it tension, but it's effect. It's like it's trauma, because I relate everything back to the body. So we're just a body, and we just live in life. We live on Earth, but we're really just an organism, just like a cow or a dog, or we're just an animal. So the same as with an animal, if they get beaten, it has an effect on them. So that tension gets stuck in their body. And when that isn't able to be resolved, then you shy away from things in life. So like a dog would shy away if you came close to it, because it thinks you're going to hit it. So we're shying away from life all the time, but really we need to just resolve the feeling of that effect. If we can, then we won't be shying away from life all the time. So in some ways, life is throwing these challenging events at us to put us in touch with that feeling, constantly trying to put us in touch with that feeling. Because I mean, I don't want to get airy-fairy and sort of spiritual, because I'm not spiritual at all. But if there's an energy coming out of somebody, a feeling coming out of somebody, in some ways that's an attractive energy, isn't it? Like if somebody's been abused, and you can tell that they've been sexually abused because they're promiscuous, and just the way they present themselves, they're flirting, overly flirting or hypersexualized, then that's an indication that they've been sexually abused. So if they're presenting that, then they're going to be getting that back. So until they resolve that feeling, or that sexual hypersexualized feeling, people are going to be responding to that constantly. And so that's what I mean by life's throwing things back at you constantly to put you in touch with what you really need to resolve. And the way I look at it, or the way that through this approach to meditation that I've taken on, it's just a tension in your body. It's simply a tension in your body. But until you can release that tension, you're holding it. And so you're holding that part of yourself the way it feels in you. And the way it feels in you is then presented to the outside world. Oh, and we, as you know, you and me, we pick up feelings in each other. We live on sensations. That's how we communicate. It's a majority of how we communicate, through sensation and response to feelings. And until you can resolve that feeling, you're going to be treated that way, if that makes sense. So it's a very important point that you've brought up, that if we're not able to resolve things and move on and let go, then we just get stuck in life. So taking advantage of those challenging situations and seeing them as opportunities rather than challenges or bad, or this shouldn't have happened to me, or all the reasoning that you come up with. It's really important for people to understand this, I believe, as well. Especially younger, the younger you can learn this in your life, the easier life is going to be. Yeah, so it's very important part of education. I think it's part of something that should be put into the education system, that we understand our feelings, we understand our sensations, and we understand how tension and trauma and the effects of life are held in our body, and learning to resolve that. It's a huge thing that people just never get taught anywhere, and hardly anybody talks about feelings. Everybody's trying to analyze and fix it, and by fixing it, they're actually condemning themselves on some level if they're trying to fix it, because they're saying to themselves that I'm not okay as I am, I need to change, I need to be different, when in actual fact all you need to do is come back to that feeling or that tension or the effect, wherever you feel it in your body, that can be anywhere, and feel that and resolve it, and then it just comes to an end. Feelings are there, meant to be felt. People don't really understand this, so that's part of what I wanted to come and talk with you today about, actually. So it's a really good point.
Yeah, I agree with that. We should be teaching this to the younger generation, because it's extremely naive to think that we can just protect all of our kids from ever harmful anything harmful ever happening to them. That's dumb. Like, the world is a scary, hard, difficult place, and there's also great things that come from those things. And if we can teach them, like you're saying, to be able to regulate the stuff that's happening to them when they go through their first heartbreak, or they get rejected from their first job, or they get kicked out of the friend group because, young people are like that and things just happen. Like, how do I deal with that? Okay, how do I feel this thing, know that I'm okay, and I can deal with it? Like, that should be taught outside of just trying to put this bubble around them and make sure nothing ever happens. Like, that's the worst thing that you could do for someone, at least I think. And so, yeah, the younger we can teach them, the better. These are like practical skills for how to live your best life, which is ultimately what we want to be teaching them. And of course, you want to, all the other basic stuff like math and reading and writing, of course, sure. But on top of that is these social health skills that are paramount to all the good things that come in life, to building a great relationship, to getting married, to having great friendships, to being able to enjoy people's presence and have deep conversations. This is all about feeling things. And if we never teach them that, or they have to wait till something horrible does happen to them, like someone dying in their life, or an abuse or a trauma, then they have to learn all of that while also trying to recover from that, just makes the whole thing so much harder and so much more challenging. Not that it's absolutely possible and can be done, of course, but why not give them the tools proactively? And obviously that's what you're trying to do with the business you're trying to create. And so I think it's very, very important.
Yeah, and the connection that we have with people is the guts of life, isn't it? It's how we can connect and communicate and understand others. That's the real connection, or the real kind of meaning of life, isn't it? Our level of being able to connect with the next person, or our level of being able to connect with your family or connect with anybody. If we're disconnected, which is ultimately what happens when you're not resolving tensions or effects of life as you go through life, you end up just disconnected and numb. So this connection to others and you can't get anywhere in life if you don't have a connection, if you don't have a connection with your business associates, you don't have a connection with your husband or your kids, then life feels disconnected and therefore has no purpose. It has no meaning. You don't feel content. You aren't fulfilled. So it's a very important point you've made.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit in your story and talk about sort of the initial part of your healing journey. What you were going through. I know you went on this retreat. This is where you met your husband. Yeah, but tell us a little bit about that and maybe what you were feeling back then and what challenges were happening, and then um, you know how meditation basically changed your life and became a very vocal point of it.
Yeah, so I was working as a chef, actually. I was a professional chef for 25 years. And I found it very hard to keep a job down for any longer than maybe 6 to 10 months. So I was moving through a lot of different jobs. And I didn't know at the time, but looking back on it, there was just this feeling of I just couldn't stand whatever feeling it was that was inside of me. So and I was angry and I was blaming people. I was making up all the reasons in the world as to why I couldn't keep working for this particular person. I was getting treated very badly. And that was for exactly the same reasons that I mentioned earlier, that I had these feelings coming out of me and people were responding to those feelings. So I was not feeling great in myself. I had been on antidepressants, so I was, diagnosed with depression. I had tried to see a therapist, and that just wasn't helping. In fact, it was probably making it worse. I had tried meditation, the Buddhist meditations, and I just didn't get that. It just didn't resonate with me at all. So I was just kind of at odds at what to do. And then a friend said to me to go and see this guy who was running meditation retreats locally. And so I went to sit on this meditation retreat. And as soon as I spoke to the guy on the phone, it was a totally different understanding, like the way he talked to me, the connection that he had with me immediately. And it was just on the telephone. And what he was saying was just something I'd never come across before. And so I went and sat on the retreat, and it straight away it resonated with me as like, oh, this is what meditation is. I don't know what the Buddhists are doing, but they're not meditating there, but this is meditation. So so I ended up sitting on the retreat, and it just, ever since the first retreat, I've been meditating for pretty much 30 minutes to an hour virtually every single day, because I just don't feel right if I don't do it. I just don't function as well. I just can't think as clearly. I'm really tired by 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I just can't think clearly, and I just start to lose a connection that I've got with myself, a deep connection that I'm feeling inside of myself, that a sense of myself that I just don't have if I don't meditate. So yeah, so at the time I was going there just because I knew something was wrong with me. I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I didn't have a clue what it was. I just had this dissatisfaction. I was just angry all the time at everyone, and people were angry at me, and I didn't know how to resolve those feelings. Had no self-worth. I was quite promiscuous, and I just felt like I was getting worse and worse. And I had always had an idea, I suppose, that I would never live past 30.
Hmm.
So yeah, which is pretty full on if you think about it. Like, I never
Yeah.
planned past 30. This was like 27 when I went to this retreat. And so I sat on the retreats for 2 years, and then 30 was coming. Like, I was 29. I turned 30, and I was so depressed. I just did not know what to do with myself because I hadn't planned to get past 30. Like,
Oh.
I was I was suicidal at times during, my late 20s. And so I continued on with the retreats, and then I ended up cooking on the retreats because I'd said to Matthew, the guy running the retreat, that I was a cook and looked like a crazy little number to me. So I just said, this will be a nice job. If you ever need a cook, give me a call. So he called me one day. And then there's the love story. So he was, when I first met him, he was married, and then when he called me to cook for him, he had separated from his first wife, and then we hit it off, and then there was the love story, and then I ended up cooking on the retreats and joining his business, and so it all turned out well from my perspective. But then when I met him and got together with Matthew, the healing really started. So then I started having memories of childhood sexual abuse, and that was super intense. Like, that was, whoa, I did not know. But as soon as I started feeling those feelings, that feeling of something being wrong, the first memory I had, it was like, that is what was wrong with me. I couldn't get to it any other way. Wow. And so when I felt that first feeling, like, okay, I've landed, I know where to go now. I know what to do. I know how to heal myself. I know what this feeling was about. Was so, because that kind of feeling inside of you, just knowing something's not right, but you just can't put your finger on it. It's a really disempowering feeling, I would say. It really makes you always question yourself. You're always doubting yourself. You're always looking. You're always trying to find what is wrong in situations where sometimes something may not be wrong, but because you have that feeling inside of yourself, you project it out into all areas of your life. So for me, just resolving that feeling, that was like, what a relief. And then it took me probably 10 years, I would say, of serious healing, like serious, a lot of meditation retreats, a lot of counseling, a lot of, working through all of that period of my life. And I've really I just got to know myself so deeply, and also, but not only that, I got to understand the complexity of the effect of that abuse. Like, that is, if anything, if you're going to put things on a scale, then that is the worst thing by far. I mean, war is probably on par with it, but I would say it's slightly different. I have never been to war, but only in myself. I've only been at war in myself, but I'm not at war with myself anymore, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, I would say that would have to be the effect of that, and the way, if a person can treat you that way, the complexity of beliefs and ideas and structures and disempowerment that causes in a child it's just huge. It takes the time it has to take for that to resolve, because the thought processes that are set up from that point on in that child, it's just massive. People don't understand that. I mean, they do on some level, but when you're really healing that from a feeling level and getting the understanding of the effect of that, yeah, it's difficult to express in words, honestly. It's difficult to communicate. It's one of those things that you could write a 1,000-page book and you still wouldn't be satisfied with your expression of it. Yeah. So I think that answers your question. So the meditation, I think the second part to the question was the meditation.
Can I pause you right there?
Yeah, sure.
So I can ask some follow-up questions before we get into that second part. Back to when you didn't think that your life was going to go past 30, was it was it that you planned on ending your life, or you thought something was going to happen catastrophically, or you just saw no important future for your life that you just didn't make a plan for it?
Yeah, I think secretly I just thought I would kill myself, really,
Mm,
because I could not think past it. Yeah, it was like a black spot. It's like I'm
mm,
only thinking to 30 because I don't want to get past 30. So it was more like that.
mm, yeah.
And whether I hadn't made a plan of whether I would kill myself or what would happen. It was just like a black spot. Like, okay, I can't think past it. I don't want to get past 30 because to me, life is so bad. I don't want to
Mm,
get past 30. And so, when 30 came, I was depressed because, like, oh no, I've got to keep living.
mm,
Yeah.
wow. And it was all related to um this horrible abuse that you went through as a child but didn't know because you had, disassociated from it completely. And um then it turns out to make sense that that's how you felt because of this horrible thing that you went through. And then sort of
Mm,
that's when the healing journey started and everything came full circle.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the
Wow.
head there.
Perfect. Um, yeah. Okay. Now to the second part of the question, where meditation, fell into the whole healing process and all of that.
Yeah. So I don't think I could have got through this any other way. Me personally, I'm not saying that's for everybody. And I know that people do get through abuse many different ways. They go to therapy, they do all sorts of healing therapies, and whether that's, psychological or physical or whatever. And that's not to say, I mean, I've done a lot of physical therapy as well, just from, all sorts of things, hyperbaric chamber, and I look after my body really well. I eat really well. So I call all of those physical therapies as well. There's naturopathy and supplements and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I would term as, physical therapy. Um, but the actual meditation, I would say, because it gets to the root of the problem, it's a really unique way to heal, actually. And because it's unique to you exactly, or me exactly as I am, it's perfect for me. It's like all about me. And it's directly aligned with my needs and what I want. And because it's also natural meditation, there's absolutely no harm. Whereas most of the other, actually, I should say, not, shouldn't say most, all of the other meditation practices that I know of anyway, all the mindfulness, all the Buddhist, all the Zen, you know, mantra, TM, visualization, breath work, all of that, it actually disassociates the person. There is there is a disconnection between you and the technique that you're using. So with this particular meditation, there is no technique. You're literally just feeling the sensations in your body, and whatever arises, that's your meditation for the day.
Mm,
So that is an inside out approach to meditation, or to life and to yourself. That is you tapping into the needs of your system and resolving them at a feeling level where that effect is in your body. So that brings in the pain aspect. So we hold tensions in our body, and this causes pain. So if you don't resolve tension, it manifests into illness or pain in your system. And if you don't resolve that, it just continues to manifest. So this particular meditation resolves that feeling or those effects in your system at the root. And once you resolve it there, it's gone completely. Like, it is astounding how quickly I can recover from things. I'm so resilient now.
mm,
I just look at myself and I'm like, are you kidding me? You would have just crumbled at that, 20 years ago. Even 2 years ago, I look back at myself and think, wow. I mean, I look back at my writing sometimes, things I've written a year ago, and I'm like, I am not that person anymore. Because I'm resolving things moment by moment, day by day, year by year. Things just don't get stuck to me anymore. And so you move through life totally differently. I have no fear of pain. I have no fear of illness. I have no fear of, even if I have an accident or something or get an injury, which, because I don't have, I can't remember the last time I got sick. I can't remember the last time I actually I cut myself when I returned to Australia 6 months ago. But I went to the hospital, but I healed it myself. I should have got stitches, but I was like, no, I'm not letting a doctor near me. I got close to one and I could see that they were just so disconnected. They were going to do me more harm than what I'd already done to myself. So I just chose to look after myself and give myself the time to heal that without the stitches. So you just have to do things differently. You don't have to go to the doctor and give all your power over to them and let them think that they can heal you when actually you're healing yourself. So back to my point, it's this meditation has given me all of that. And I don't take that for granted. That's not something that people should take lightly, because if you look at your day, if you look at the way you live your life, you are probably avoiding, distracting, making up reasons why you can't go near to a feeling that is not comfortable to you. I don't have that. I'm not uncomfortable with my feelings. Therefore, I'm not uncomfortable with any feelings in myself, and I'm not uncomfortable with any feelings in others either. So I'm not afraid of people. I mean, if someone's scary, obviously, I'm intelligent. I'm still intelligent. If someone's scary, I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to get out of that person's vicinity. But if I can't, then I'm alert. I'm intelligent. I'll be careful what I do. I'll be careful what I say. And I've learned all of these things through this meditation. And for me, I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to live like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Isn't that what everybody is trying to aspire to or be in their lives? And I'm me, like I fully know the life and that path that I am on is fully me. It's not influenced by others. It's not what people have told me to do. It's not, I'm doing things because I want to do them for me and it's the best thing for me, not because society has said, oh, you've got to go get married and have 3 kids, or you've got to live in Texas, or you've got to buy a house and have 3 cars in the garage and a motorbike on the side. I'm doing what I want to do rather than what society is conditioning me to do. And that's a good feeling. That's,
Oh, yeah.
You've got so much more power, so much more ability to make your own decisions and not be influenced by others. And for me, that's massive. That is, to me, that's just the ultimate thing. That's what we're here for. We're here to be our unique selves and do what we should be doing in our way, in our time, and how we want to do it. Not in a selfish way, but in a way that is good for all of us. So that's what this meditation's given me.
That's amazing. And just to reiterate, it's called natural meditation. That's the phrase, or the phrase that you've coined, right? So I just want to make sure people know that. But really, what you're saying, and the essence of it, is that you're truly understanding who you are, like at your core, and how that can evolve over time when new experiences happen and new moments and things change, and you still have this core essence or understanding of who you are, the values you want to represent, and the person you want to be in this world. And you're connecting with that regularly and showing that to the world in the most authentic way possible. I mean, there is this like the utmost freedom in that, of being able to walk into a room knowing that you're showing up exactly how you are. You don't have to shape shift. You don't have to maneuver. You don't have to put on a mask. You're just like, this me. Let's go. Like, I'm good. But that takes a lot of work. And what you mentioned is one of the most important parts, is that you're working from the inside out. I mean, that is just that's such a important key piece. Like, that's the only way that's going to happen, inside out. You can't go external validation and external means to fix what's happening on the inside. It has to be, what am I feeling? What's happening in here? And then you move out into the world. And then, as you know, like, good things start to happen around you when that happens, because you have this, I don't know, we'll go back to the spiritual woo-woo stuff, but this sort of energy about you that you possess, that people want to be around, and they're attracted to that, and they want to be around that, and they want to, talk to that or do business with that, or whatever the case may be. And so, it's profound. And if we're not trying to do
Yeah, it
that,
is.
while we're on Earth, then what are we trying to do? Then we're just pretending to be something or someone else, and we're going to be the second best someone else, when really we can be the first best us, which is, the most important thing.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's a big thing to not, I mean, nobody knows you the way you know you. In fact, nobody can know you the way that you know you, because nobody else is inside of you. So really, you're the only one who can know you. So people telling you things like opinions, or you should do this that way, or you should do that way, yeah, take it on, but only to a point, because you need to see if that is really what you are or who you are. And people can see things, or people do see things very differently to how you see things. Everybody, that's the uniqueness of us, aren't we? Everybody sees things differently. So if somebody's making a great statement about you and what you are and how you should change, or you should be this or that, or don't do this, don't do that, well, really question that. What would you know about me, really, like, deeply? You do not know the way I think, you don't know the way I feel, you don't know, you know me intimately to a level if you're in a intimate relationship, but still nobody knows you like the way you know you. So you've got to be clear enough, I would say, and connected enough with yourself to be able to make your own decisions in life. And it's almost your responsibility to yourself to give yourself that chance to be the best that you can be. Not in a goal orientated, I'm going to be the best type. You don't want to be motivated by that, but more just because, isn't doing things well, isn't that what makes you feel successful, I guess? Or isn't that what makes you feel fulfilled and content? Just knowing that you've put the best that you can into something and done it to the best of your abilities and been fully connected to whatever it is that you're doing. Isn't that what you are? And isn't that the only way that you can really express yourself from the inside out? So to understand all of this and these, I think that I just want to keep coming back to that point of people trying to control your life and the way that you live your life, and telling you who you are and what you shouldn't do. I think it's really overrated. People's opinions are not as important as people think they are. So find out from it. Like, I can't even remember asking people, what do you think about me? Like, years ago I would be looking at that point, when I was depressed, and I was always looking to people for validation and what do you think of me and how do I come across? And I was constantly trying to get that feedback. But now I'm like, well, if you can't live with me, if you don't like me, then if I'm upsetting you that much, you're gonna let me know in some way, on some level. So if you can handle me, great. If you can't, well, then you're going to walk away. So
Right.
I don't know, in that way, life is just happening by itself. You reject and repel, or you attract the people that resonate with you and are meant to be in your life. That's how I kind of look at things. So opinions of others, they're not as important as people make out. What's important is you understanding yourself and you feeling comfortable in your own skin and feeling or staying in touch with the sense of yourself and the sense that you know what you're doing is right for you.
Yeah. Why is it important to, we've touched on this a little bit, but just to sort of hammer down the point, why is it important to see the mind and the body as one instead of two separate entities?
Well, my understanding, and I must admit, when you sit on these meditation retreats or when you sit for long periods of time, you really get a very deep understanding of thought. You understand the nature of thought and what it does, and therefore you don't get fooled by it. So my experience of sitting on retreats, and this is going to sound pretty far out to most people, is that the mind just does not exist. Our thinking process is like an off-gassing of the sensations in our body, but those sensations arise inside of us, and any thoughts that come from that they're still inside of us. So how can the mind be this external? Because we think about it as this external thing, this thing that is separate to us. It's not separate to us at all, because if we're not alive, we're not thinking. So how can it be separate to us? If we don't have a body, we're not thinking. So it's not separate to us at all, whereas people have totally misunderstood thought. I mean, you can go to Africa and people don't even, when you talk about the mind as a separate thing, they're like, what are you talking about? So it has been a condition or a belief that has been set in place. I think it's only been for about 100 years where we started, the psychologists decided, oh, we've got a mind. So you grow up, you get told that we've got a mind, you go along with it. It's a cultural belief in my mind, and it's a trick and a con, and I don't agree with it. So, I mean, you've got to find that out for yourself, and your listeners will have to find that out for themselves. But in my experience, any thought arises from all thoughts arise from a sensation in the body. So if that's the case, if there is no such thing as a mind, then all we are is a body. And if we're just a body, then the body and the mind have then now merged as one. So therefore you have to treat the body and the mind as exactly the same thing. So it's all just physical. So if I've got a pain in my elbow, then there's going to be a reason for that pain in my elbow, and that pain in my elbow, there will be a thinking pattern associated with that is causing the pain. But if I can get in touch with the feelings and then sensations that are related to that pain, or just physically feel that pain in my elbow rather than avoid it, then you're going to start breaking down that thought pattern behind it. So that's how I see things. And the same with mental health. Like anxiety, they say, is a mental disorder. But where do you feel anxiety? You've got it.
Chest.
You feel it in your chest. Some people feel it in their stomach. Some people feel it in their throat. Some people in their lungs. So that's a physical sensation. So how can anxiety be a mental disorder?
Mm.
Yeah. So that's how I treat it. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I know the Dr. Andrew Huberman. I'm not sure if you follow his podcast at all, but he
I've listened
talks
to a few
about
episodes. He's pretty scientific.
very scientific. And maybe I'm totally misrepresenting his point here, but he talks about it's very hard to fix the mind with the mind. So you have to get out of the mind and into the body because they both go in both directions,
Yeah.
Because when I talk to athletes, like we want to have the right thought patterns when we're on the field of play, like positive affirmations, things that are going to tell us to do the thing we want to do. That's good, but it's also affecting my body. And if my body language is good, I'm big, I stand tall, I look powerful, that's going to affect my mind. And so it all goes in both directions, but you can't just outthink something that's happening in your mind. You have to get out of it to feel it somewhere else, and then it all starts to happen in sort of this bi-directional way. And so that at least was made sense to me, and what you said also made sense to me. So seems to be accurate.
I totally agree. Yeah, you cannot fix thought with thought, and that's what psychology is. You're trying to think your way out of a problem, but the problem is thought. So you can't. It's like fighting a fire with lighter fluid. You can't. It's literally going to just blow up more. So because thought is so tricky, people do understand that thought is really, really tricky. Like the nature of thought is really to replicate. If you don't give thought more thought, because you can keep thinking. The nature of thought is to replicate. So if you're angry, for instance, all you're going to do is look for more things to be angry about. And that's what I mean by thought replicates thought. So you're constantly just looking for more and more. It's looking for more fuel constantly. So the only way you can resolve that or reduce that thinking is like exactly what he said, which is, that's pretty cool that he said that, is come back to the body. You've literally got to get below or beneath thought. And yeah, that's perfect. Exactly what he said. So that's how I see it. Yeah.
I'm sure he got a little heat from some psychologists, but that is what it is.
Well, because their whole purpose is to, continue the thought process. So if you're stomping out the fire, then they're not going to be happy about that.
Yeah. And I was also listening, like another related point. I was listening to Dr. Jordan Peterson talk about depression, and he says that there has to be a distinction between like potentially a medically diagnosed depression and your life just being shitty. Those are not the same thing. He's like, it's not like, I know it sucks, but like if you have no friends, you don't have a good job, like you're like, that's not depression. That's just your life being fucking bad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And there has to be an honest conversation about that. Okay, what can we do about it? It's not, you're gonna you're not gonna outthink your way into having friends or getting a better job. No, you have to do shit. You have to like, okay, what do I need to do? How do I have better conversations? How do I clean myself up? How do I go to the gym? Or what do I need to do with my resume? Like these are action oriented things. They have nothing to do with thinking your way out of them. Yeah, you want to think positively about it, sure, of course, but it's more about action, like doing the thing, getting into real life. And so he says that it's really important to make that distinction because one, medication is not going to do anything for these things over here. It's not going to get you more friends. It's not going to get you a better job. It's not going to help you find meaning. Like there is a place for medication for sure. I can't demonize that, obviously. And there's some very severe forms of depression where, psychological intervention and things like that can definitely help, of course. But majority of people are in this other bucket where their life is just not where they want it to be. And they feel really sad about it. And I get that because it sucks. And your life is not going the way you want it to. But the only way out of that is to take these little steps forward that are action oriented about how can I improve my life And then in 3 to 4 years, 10 years, wow, I'm feeling fucking really good. Now I still go through struggles and obstacles, but man, I know I can get through them because I have all this credibility now that I can do that. And I think him as a clinical psychologist making that distinction is really, really important and can be powerful for a lot of people that listen to him, because he's one of my favorite people to listen to.
Yeah, there's some really good points you made there, actually, that I can talk about. Firstly, what my understanding is that any mental condition, any physical condition, it all comes back to a reaction to a feeling. So if you can understand reactions and resolve your reaction to the feelings inside of yourself, the faster you can do that, the faster you move on. So but the other point secondary to that for the depression, it ultimately just boils down to the reaction, and what a reaction is, majority of the time, is complaining about things. So that's the thought pattern. So same with anger, as we go looking for anything to make us angry or to fuel the fire of that anger. The same with depression. We just look for things in our lives that we can complain about. And I'm not saying, I'm being very broad here, and I hope I'm not being insensitive to people who have depression. I'm not judgmental of that. I'm just talking baseline. Let's get to the root of the problem of this. So if you can stop the complaining, you can stop the depression. And what you're suggesting too, you just got to do little steps like go clean up your room, go to the gym. This is exactly what I was talking about, where the mental and the physical are one. You've just said that perfectly. But what you've actually done is bring the mental into the physical. So in that way, you're treating mental and physical as one and the same thing. People don't understand that because they're so caught between the two worlds. But what you've done, what you've suggested in that scenario is perfect as bringing the mental and the physical and treating them as one, because you can't have one without the other. So that was perfect. I just wanted to make those points.
Yeah, thank you. I just did a full episode about that exact point. So that's why it's fresh on my mind, because I just did a whole episode titled "Is Depression a Real Disease?" And I did a bunch of research for it, and that's some of the stuff that came up. And there's this great book that you might find very interesting called Rethinking Depression by Eric Maisel. You might find it very interesting. He basically sort of flips the idea of depression on its head about how we can think about it, and how the Western world has sort of manipulated that word. And it's quite interesting book. I found a lot of information in there that was quite useful.
As soon as you start labeling things, you turn them into something real. So the less you can label things, like depression will just be, as you said, it'll just be a feeling. So we've worked with people who have come to us with depression, and we've talked with them, and they've said, told us everything that they've done, and we're like, have you ever felt that feeling? And they're like, oh, no, I've actually never done that, because you're too scared to. Most people are too scared to feel a feeling like that because they think they're going to get lost in it, or they don't know what will happen if they feel it. We're taught not to feel our feeling. But so many times people have come to us with depression and we've told them to feel it, and literally within a day or 2 days, it's gone, and it's never returned. So it's for us anyway, in the way that we operate, it's a simple one for people to get over, and relatively quickly. I'm not saying that's for everybody, because I know there are other degrees and there'll be other reasons why there are many reasons why people are depressed. But generally, if it's not a deep-seated depression and there's not too many other underlying issues, you can actually just feel the feeling and resolve it, get on with it. the trick is that people don't tend to know how to feel anymore. So we've got a fairly big education on how to actually feel, because people are so caught in their thoughts nowadays that they actually think they're feeling. So they're thinking about their feelings, they're not feeling the feelings. So it does take a little bit of practice to learn how to feel.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. Is there anything else that you want to touch on that, I didn't ask or forgot to ask, or how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm happy. It's been a really good conversation. I've really, really enjoyed it. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
feeling, because of where I'm at in my life, I'm feeling actually very good about how I've come across as well, and my expression of myself in the past. Like, because the previous podcasts I've done, I had a lot of nerves before the podcast, but this time I turned up. I'm like, I'll just talk and let you know I know a lot of stuff, so I shouldn't have been nervous in the past, is how I feel. So and I've really enjoyed talking with you. You've got you're pretty deep as well. You've been around, you've seen a lot of things, and I can tell that you've got a real understanding and a real connection with people. So it's very nice to talk with you.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. Amazing. Well, where should people go if they want to connect with you, or what you're doing, or things that are coming up?
Yeah, so we've got a mobile app where you can learn all about natural meditation and how to feel, and that's at undoapp.com. So undoapp.com. We also run meditation retreats, so that's at a website called quietretreats.co. And we've got YouTube. You can get to find our social media and all of that from the Undo website. And also, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I've done quite a lot of videos on LinkedIn as well. So I'll just keep cranking those out for the rest of the year and into next year as well. I really enjoy LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to connect with me there, they're welcome to. Oh, and we've got
Amazing.
a mental fitness quiz as well. So that's an interesting one if people want to take a quiz on checking out how their mental fitness is going. So that's linked to my LinkedIn, but it's also on our website as well. So
Perfect. Well, all that would be linked down below in the show notes for anyone who wants to check that out. But amazing. Happy to meet you. And thank you for the brilliant chat.
No problem. Really nice meeting you as well. And I wish you best with all your podcasting and everything. And we'll chat soon.
Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.